the banners. I do want to have a banner. There we go. Okay, so what I've done, everybody needs to understand what I'm doing here, right? This is what I'm doing here. Let's set the stage. In fact, I'll come back just for a second. I'll come back and I'll set the if I can come back. There we go. I'm going to set the stage. So I have been saying for decades, get rid of the preseason polls, get rid of the polls up until the 6th week of the season. So you go 5 weeks, no AP, no coaches poll. Okay? Those are the ones that have the most sway. Sagarin and all these others, they're important. But until we go to an all-computer rating system that's unified, we need to pick the biggest two, and that's going to be the AP and the coaches polls, okay? So I've been screaming since the 80s to get rid of the polls. You know why? Because if you get rid of the preseason polls, you can you eliminate immediately the bias. I'm not saying you're not going to have bias later in the season at week 6, but to get to that bias and to validate it each year, you're going to have to fight through a month essentially of games that will prove how good you are or not. That's what this is all about. This is all about you guys understanding that in an alternate universe, if we really track this work for these polls, you'll see where they would end up as a perfect distance. And yes, I am going to pick on Notre Dame. So let's just start. What is it? I'm 517. So we can cut this out of here, Moen. Here we go. All right. I hope you can see this. I can't make it much bigger. Please give me a comment. I am watching comments too, really quick. If you see the playoff thing start and I wasn't watching, although I've got it open, it's just not doing anything. Okay, I'm gonna read along. What you guys are looking there? I'm sorry, it's not bigger. So what we're looking at here, and you can see the titles. The week 1, which I would do away with if it was up to me. There would not be a week 1. But the week 1 this year, the real week 1, starting from the top. Texas, Penn State, Ohio State, Clemson, UGA, that's Georgia, Notre Dame, Oregon, Alabama, LSU, Miami, ASU, Illinois, South Carolina, Michigan, Florida, SMU, K-State. I've already caught a couple errors I should have flagged. Anyway, K-State, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Indiana was all the way down at 20, everybody. Indiana was at 20, and Texas A&M was 19. Okay, so just keep that in your head. Ole Miss, ISU, Iowa State, Texas Tech, and Tennessee rounded out with Boise State. Okay, so everybody can look at that and say, objectively, there are some really, there's what? How many teams there? Over a third of them, right? There's 25. So there's almost 10 teams that don't deserve a ranking in a later poll. Not certainly where they're at. I'll call those out really quick. Penn State, Clemson, Notre Dame is going to be the exemplar. LSU, Miami. No, sorry, Miami's okay. LSU, Illinois, South Carolina, Florida, Kansas State, and Iowa State and Boise State. So you go into a season, you're like, okay, that sounds fun to me, right? That sounds like something I can really get into. At the end of the day, what we're looking at is, sorry, I got to repost this. We're looking at teams that by week 6 would not be in the playoff, would they? Well, one of them's in the playoff. Miami's outside the playoff. But let's talk about Notre Dame and Miami. You can see they're the two I flagged, yellow and red. So Notre Dame was 6 in week 1. And I'm going to open the phone lines. You guys can call in and tell me where I've got this wrong, but I think I've got it spot on. Track Miami's progress. Miami week 1 went to 10. Sorry, it was at 10. Week 6, they were number 3 in the country. Week 9, they had dropped 1 loss. They dropped all the way to 9. Okay. week 14, which is this week, Miami's on the outside looking in at 13. And that could change tonight, right? But right now, Miami is 13. Now let's track Notre Dame. Notre Dame started at 6, everyone. Notre Dame started at 6. Now, if we cut off week 1, we do not do any polls until week 6. Where's Notre Dame in week 6? Well, they're still in the top 25, but how many games have they lost? They've lost 2 games at that point. So they're way down here at 21. If we waited and did a poll, the very first poll on week 6, Notre Dame would have been in the 20s. And you're like, well, wait a second. They have all these wins. They didn't have them yet. So why are we giving them the boost from the first poll that keeps them with 2 losses at 21? Right? 2 losses at 21, and BYU's undefeated at that point in week 6. I think they're 5 or 6-0, 5-0, I think. Well, no, week 0. I think they're 6-0 at this point. And I think Notre Dame's only played 5 games, so they're 3-2. So now, let's track really quick. Let's just track Notre Dame's progress. So at week 6, they fell all the way to 21. In my mind, that says you're all the way down at 21. Then they go to, and I want to make sure I get these right, then they jump. After 3 more weeks, 3 wins, Notre Dame jumps right behind BYU still at 12-11. Okay? You following me? So BYU's undefeated. BYU's undefeated, right? This is right before they lost to Texas Tech. So that's week 9. Now we jump ahead to week 14. So we've gone from 6 to 14. That's 8, I guess 9 if you're counting the actual poll. 8 or 9. And Notre Dame was at 12. But they keep winning, and BYU lost a game. Okay, well, they lost a game, so they fall back. But why does Notre Dame jump from 21 to 14 in, 6 to 8 weeks, and all they've done is just win the regular games? Because there's other teams that have been winning a lot bigger games that are behind them or beat them. Now let's get back to Miami. Look where Miami is. Miami's still behind Notre Dame, even though when they were up here, they were ahead. When they were up here, they were ahead. But you dropped them. This is the change. From week 9 to week 14, you devalued the head-to-head matchup of Notre Dame and Miami. And you say, okay, that only affects those 2 teams. Why does that matter? It matters because of this. If we were to do a straight seeding and we were just going to take teams all the way through, that's where these news come in. New is if you lost, you dropped. I just moved you down. If you won, you just basically held your spot until somebody ahead of you lost. And as we move from left to right, you'll see teams lose and they drop naturally, right? But there is no way that Notre Dame should go from a losing position to a winning position without winning any other games that matter. You should be, in my mind, it's not so much promoting Notre Dame as it is demoting, Miami, than it is demoting, can't talk. I would move BYU up 1. I would move Vandy up 1. I would move Miami. Actually, I would have Miami ahead of Vandy. But and then I would put Notre Dame maybe tied with Utah. They would not be up here playing in the playoff. So can somebody explain to me why that head-to-head all of a sudden doesn't mean anything? And why, if we didn't have the week 1 poll, all of the bias that shows up when we finally get to week 6, it's all gone. And we saw that. Notre Dame should have dropped out. There's arguments that Notre Dame shouldn't even have been right here after 2 losses in the first 5 weeks. But fine, whatever. You keep them in the poll. But teams that haven't lost anything, they're the ones who should jump. Miami being at number 3 was not a joke. They were really good at the time, right? Then they hit a bit of a bump and they fell back a little bit. Then they hit another bump and they fell back a little bit. But they didn't fall to the bottom. And the reason they didn't fall to the bottom is because there's teams behind them that all these blue ones just got in the poll at the bottom. They just got in this first week's poll. They show up. Might have been in last week's too, a few of them. But these 6 teams, Georgia Tech's in there because they lost. These 6 teams all have 2 losses, 1 loss. But then you can get into argument, well, Tennessee, have they played anybody? What's their schedule? And if they have 2 losses and USC has 2 losses, I think USC now has 3 losses. But if they both are sitting on 2 losses, you can make an argument USC should be ahead of Tennessee, right? That's where the argument should happen. It shouldn't be we've artificially promoted teams because of where their initial perception was out. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? Does everybody get what I'm putting down? And I know this is still going, so we're still waiting. So you can see kind of why this is a big deal, why the polls from week 1 to week 6 make a huge difference. Because if you are not Miami, if you are Vandy, if you are Utah, each one of you guys should be rated in your own sphere. And in my opinion, being in a conference, playing a conference schedule is more difficult than being an independent. And there's no argument that strength of schedule and strength of record are not as high as BYU's, right? But what they lean into is their good losses. Good losses were invented last year to prop Boise State up. There should not be a thing as a good loss. If you look at all these ones that say week new, and I'm looking at them, you guys can read them, track those and tell me if you think I did a pretty good job. I picked those based on whether the team won or lost and where they were in their conferences. So if you track that all the way over, I think in the new column, I think I did a pretty good job for week 6, for week 9. I think I did a pretty good job for week 14. They're not actually that far off, are they? The only one that breaks the cycle, and why this matters, is Notre Dame breaks the wheel. Y'all know what that means. Everything they do sort of upsets the delicate balance, and that's what's going on right now. The ACC might not get a regular team in. The champion might not get in. That is a possibility, which would then leave Miami a chance to come in as an at-large. But Miami can't come in because Notre Dame's got potentially one of the only spots that's left. So who could lose this weekend? Oklahoma plays LSU. They could lose. Notre Dame plays nobody. I don't know who Ole Miss plays. South Carolina, maybe? I don't remember. Oregon has to play Washington. At least it's a rivalry game. Texas A&M plays Texas. There's another opportunity, right? It's just broken. And then the last thing I want to call out, and then I'll take your comments. We'll go through this together because I respect each one of you. Whether you agree with what I'm saying or not, at least you're listening to me. I appreciate that. Texas is the highest 3-loss team. So the first 3-loss team is 16. Does everybody get? Let me say that slower. The highest 3-loss team is 16. What does that mean? It means the top 15 all are 10-2 or better. 15 teams have the potential to be 10 or better. Right now they're 9 or better. But they could be 10 and better tomorrow. Or, well, whenever, tonight and next week. And if they go 10-0, that has never happened before. We've had polls that have gone 7, 8, 9 deep. I remember back in the day, it used to happen a lot, where you'd have teams that, were 10-2. Actually, it was like 10-1. We were playing 11 games then. And everybody pretty much played the same schedule. Now everything's so unbalanced that now you have to really call out what you think is good and what you think is bad, and then try to draw attention to it so you can be an activist and help people understand what their opinion is, which it might not be mine. So Texas is the first 3-loss team. There's 15 teams that don't play each other that could all end up 10-2 or better. Never happened before, and it could stay there. That top 15 can stay at 10 or better in wins. Now tell me we don't need an expanded playoff. Now tell me 16 doesn't work. Now tell me 24 doesn't work. Because I will tell you right now, you go the top 24 in this, you go 24 deep, you got games that people will watch. University of North Texas and James Madison, they're doing great for where they're at. They would probably be a lower seed in home games if you were doing 24, but people would watch these games. Who's going to watch Texas at 16 will end up playing, I don't know, is it SMU? No, it's top 15. No, it wouldn't be. It's these 8. My bad. UVA and UVA would be playing whoever 8 is. Oklahoma, no, 9. Alabama. People will watch these games, guys. It's complete BS that people say we don't need an expanded playoff. It's garbage, and I've said it to everybody. You can call me whatever you want to call me, but people will watch these games, and I would rather watch these games than the guy on the shelf bowl in Tempe, Arizona, and it's bowl game qualifier 6-6 and 6-6. Who wants to watch that crap when you can make this part of the bowl games? All these guys playing games, make them part of the bowl game process. But just so everybody knows, Notre Dame is the number 1 target right now, and there's a reason for it. It's not like everybody's in love with Miami. I can attest to that. As a remote Miami appreciator, yeah, I get how people are maybe a little upset at Miami, but they shouldn't be. Everybody, the entire college football world needs to force change on Notre Dame, because their access, not only is it superior access, but because we have these early paradigm-setting rounds of voting in the polls, artificially bounced up. And now Notre Dame is definitely taking a spot that would go to a Big 12 second or an ACC first. Yeah, so that's my rant. I hope I made it clear. I was trying to be very clear and concise. I think I did a pretty good job. I practiced that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to your comments. It still hasn't started yet. I cannot believe it. Let's do this. Okay, now I don't need to be that big. Let's see if I can get, there's an in-between one, I thought. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to work backwards. There he is. This is the guy. Shows up at the end of the day. It isn't their spot, Rich. It is not their spot. If they don't start here week 1, which shouldn't even be a poll, there's no way they get back into the top 10 by only beating who they're beating. Utah would be ahead of them. Miami would be ahead of them. BYU should be ahead of them. You can make an argument that Vanderbilt could be ahead of them. Anybody in the top 15 only has 2 losses. The math doesn't math. So I get what you're saying, and I know you're upset about it, but you can't argue with the fact that they started at a place and they're ending at a place that was artificially built up because we had polls in the first 5 weeks. That's my opinion. I'm going to be opening the phone lines as soon as the stupid college football playoff picks are done, and you can call in and let's argue for a bit. But I, as passionate as you are, I'm passionate, and I took the time to put a presentation together to explain exactly why I'm passionate. It's just not made up crap. The Notre Dame love is ridiculous. I don't know how everybody isn't piling on them, to be perfectly frank. Okay, let's work backwards now. Sean, valuable member of the College Football Mafia family, says your mark needs to promote the Big 12 teams to start higher in the preseason. Brett Yormark, have you noticed, has disappeared since last week. You know why? And you're talking to a very frustrated Big 12 fan who has been nothing but a supporter. He only cares about basketball. It's very evident. He's in the basketball days, and he's not doing remotes for football. He's not going to the college game days and stuff. He's not showing out, and it's very disappointing. Very, very disappointing at a very high level. By the way, since I am working backwards through comments, if you want your comment to be read, make it a super chat, and I get to all those. We're well over 1,000 comments. Well over 1,000. So I'm going to pick and choose. I definitely usually defer to member comments, so you can become a member, and I defer to those comments too. But if you want your comment to absolutely be read and you don't want to call in, make it a super chat, and we'll talk. I'll give you time. Let me make sure I didn't miss any while I was doing this. Nope, Earl Carr owned the first half of the show. There we go. Huffer Billy Paw. I love that name. That's fantastic. Good to have you here, Huffer Billy Paw. Make sure you subscribe and follow and all that fun stuff. Love to have you here. We do stuff like this all the time. Notre Dame is G5 essentially. Well, I'm not going to go deep into Notre Dame's schedule, but if you compare the schedules, strength of schedules, BYU, as an exemplar, has a much more difficult schedule than Notre Dame does. Just playing two outlier teams who only one of them really showed out for the season, that should not get you anything, to be honest. Utah, Miami, Vanderbilt, Michigan, Alabama, Oklahoma should all be above, all of them above Notre Dame. And it's all because of that first week bias. You can see it right there. First week actual, sorry. Didn't mean to do that. All right. It's good to have you here, Huff. Thank you very much. The other guy, Gax, Daniel. Good to have you here. Daniel knows the trick. If you use my name in your comment, I generally will read it. It's a trick. Bomber, we talked about the Notre Dame bias for years. Nothing will change. I know. I'm just calling attention to it. I know it won't change, Daniel. But this stuff, because this isn't BYU raising the stink, most of this is Miami fans. And should be Utah fans too. I don't know why Utah fans aren't freaking out too. They played a much more difficult schedule than Notre Dame was. Rich, aren't you? Why don't you stand up for Utah instead of defending Notre Dame? Unless maybe you do have a connection to Notre Dame, and I don't know about it. And if so, I apologize. But if you're just a Utah fan, you don't have to bend over for the Big Ten and the SEC. You can hammer Notre Dame. There's no reason not to do it. Rich says because we are ranked properly. That's really interesting. So you like being behind Notre Dame. Okay. I guess there's not much else to say. Clint Moses, good to have you here, Clint. He is the Oregon State Beaver in the house. BYU's played one good team, got their doors blown off. Okay, it wasn't that bad. You guys keep making this thing look like it was a complete play. Utah lost by more points than BYU did. So just stop. Clint, just stop. That is factually not true. Anyway, let's see here. I already did that one. I'm going to go by here more. Miami from Huffer Billy Paw. Miami's getting hosed if Notre Dame gets in and Miami doesn't. Notre Dame plays one less game than two conference teams. Yes, that's why I always default to championships. So my first pick would be whatever your schedule, whatever your rank is. 10-2, 11-1, whatever your final record is. Second thing I'd look at is championships. Did you win a championship of some sort? And then head-to-head would be my next one. And head-to-head trumps brand bias and everything else. but that's not going to be, that's not real. Larry, the GM, good to have you here, Larry. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I choose to believe that the CFP committee does a thorough job and is not corrupt. Okay. Absolutely have every right to do that. I am not knocking people for doing that. If they're protecting them, or they feel like they're really strong about that, I totally support what you're doing. Sorry, I had to get that one clicked. Good to see you, Larry. Let's see. One more from Larry. Sorry. One more from Larry. If your team goes undefeated playing all G6 teams, you are not the number one team in the country. Sorry. I didn't say that, Larry. That's not what I said. I said there's no such thing as a good loss. You can't go forward by losing. And that's what Notre Dame has done. They've leveraged losses to two teams, one of them who turned out to be very, very bad. And they're leveraging that and making it so it's a bonus. They're flipping it around. And nobody else can do that, so why do they get to do it? Anyway. This, I don't know. I don't even know what this means. You said that on Twitter. Rich, I don't know what that means. I'm looking at it from, I want more bowl games because I love bowl games, not bowl games. I want more playoff games. I think it makes the season more important. You can play more out of conference games if you have more teams in a playoff. You don't worry about losing that one, losing that other. If you play an out of conference game, it's not going to kill you because you have a conference to build up your schedule. It would encourage people to play out of conference games. Right now, out of conference games are going to disappear because when you play those out of conference games, they're not being rewarded doing it. Go Black 45, one of the best names on social media. I appreciate it. Good to have him here. If the 12 only gets one, the presidents might force Yormark to take the two auto bids. He's talking about the 4-4-2-2 playoff format. LSU has to find an offense to score more than 13 points against a G5 team first, Bomber. Yeah, I know. I'm not saying, yeah, LSU's not going to beat. Is it Oklahoma? No, that's not going to happen. Stephen Vitt, about rankings, that sounds like a max tiebreaker system. Yeah, all of this that you've got up in front of you, I am trying to eliminate going 12 layers deep into people's schedules to do, if you lost to you and I lost to you, but they played each other, all this gymnastics, this is very straightforward. If you win, you go up. If you lose, you go down. Same record, that's when you can start comparing head-to-heads, championships, and then strength of record, whatever else you want to do. Pretty straightforward. Earl Carr, breaking news, Cowboys hire Morris, former North Texas coach, as their new head coach per ESPN. I didn't realize they fired their head coach. Did I miss that? Okay. Yeah, heard it here first. I didn't know that they'd even gotten rid of their coach. You need the schedule of these teams to make a better argument, Bomber. I'm not going that deep. That wasn't the purpose of this exercise. The purpose of this exercise is to show people that the first 5 weeks and the preseason polls, no matter what you want to say about them, definitely dictate the way the rest of the season goes. And at the end of the day, it dictates who makes the CFP. I'm not going to get into people's schedules head-to-head and all that. I mean, anything that isn't head-to-head championships and total wins, I'm not going to get into it. I don't really have. I just don't care, to be honest. Larry, the GM, what does Notre Dame deserve to be rated now? And were pollsters wrong for not dumping them? Seems like they were right. In what way, Larry? How have they justified it? Just winning regular games does not justify continuing to climb like you're beating world beaters every week. Look at their schedule. Beating Navy by 900 points should not be something you can put on a resume to move up. I just think that's ridiculous. So let's see here. Stephen Vitt earlier said preseason AP and coaches polls are all pointless and continue to be. Yeah, well, get rid of the first 5 weeks. Start week 6, and then I will buy into your CFP. That would be a much bigger deal than anything. So that's how I look at it now.